keeping in mind the audience that we have that may not have ever shot a match or attended a class,
Mhm.
um, what kind of advice can you provide for someone that is thinking about going to their first match or thinking
Mhm.
about going to their first class? Like,
Gotcha.
what should they do? How should they prepare?
Good question. Excellent question. I know there's a few good articles out there on there, going to your first gun class, going to your first match. But let me just kind of summarize what it is. So the key thing, number one thing, of course, is safety. Um, Matches and classes don't allow gun handling anywhere except specific areas. At a safety table for matches, most classes, instructors will have you a place where you can load and unload or change out your carry ammo for other things. The main thing is just don't take a gun out of a holster or a bag without the instructor or a safety officer saying, okay, yes, this is where you can do it. Just show up and ask around at a match, ask where the safety officer is, any of them, ask where the match director is, and say, hey, this is my first match. What do I do? They'll usually assign someone to mentor you and kind of take you around and show you stuff. But what you need is a safe and hopefully reliable gun. Uh, Most of them will require a holster of some sort. So, some kind of safe holster that completely protects the trigger guard and won't let the gun fall out. Appropriate amount of ammo, eye and ear protection, and then just an open mind and the willingness to engage in something new. Most people hate being new at something. I want to show that I'm already good at this. Um, Chris Hadfield was the commander of the space station for 6 months or a year. He's a Canadian astronaut, interesting fellow, and he wrote a great book called The Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. And in it, he talks about being in a new job. And same thing when you're being in a class or being in a match and you're new at this. He said, strive for zero. Strive to not be a drain on resources or strive to not add to any problems. He said most people come into a job and say, I want to be a plus one. I want to show them they've made a great choice in hiring me. So I'm going to just dive in and I'm going to help out everywhere I can. The problem is you don't know enough to help out without causing more problems. So in striving to be a plus one, you actually wind up being a minus one. He said, new situation, strive for zero. Don't screw up. Watch, listen, and learn. So that's my advice for classes and for matches. Ask how you can help, but try not to jump in and do things you're not quite certain how to do, and then be absolutely religious about your safety practices, muzzle discipline, finger discipline, and never be afraid to ask for help. Everybody there wants to see you succeed.
Man, great stuff. Great advice.
Oh,
That is
thank
excellent. I'm gonna take a look for that book. So that was Chris Hatfield,
you.
Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth.
Exactly. It shows on the cover of it. It shows a picture of a guy in a space suit, and he's riding a skateboard. It looks like in space. So yeah, very interesting stuff. He's a great writer and a real interesting human being.
Man, that's awesome. That is awesome. So I asked about what things you were passionate about, and one thing that I didn't expect, but I always knew you were a motorcycle enthusiast. I wanted to talk to you more about like your perspectives of motorcycle riding because I used to ride. I
Mm,
rode a Yamaha V Star 950.
mhm.
Um, it was probably too light of a bike for me. I don't know. I'm weighing in at like 260 pounds, and my bike is 950 cc's, but it did it. Can you
Oh,
tell me a little bit about like what you ride and how you got into it?
absolutely. Well, I would never have guessed that for your weight, my friend. You wear it well. You carry it well. So motorcycling is something I got into when I was 13, 14. My dad bought a Honda XR75 that my brother and I, who's 5 years older than I, fought over. And very shortly after that, he wound up getting a two-stroke motocross bike and starting to race. And a couple years later, I followed suit and started racing motocross. So I raced dirt bikes from 1975 until 1988. And I really am so thankful for that experience because motorcycle racing, especially on the dirt, it's very unforgiving of inattention. It teaches you to be completely focused on what you're doing at the time. There's a little documentary out there that I caught a glimpse of years ago, and it's called Motorcycling, The Lazy Man's Zen, or The Lazy Man's Way to Zen. And the explanation of that was when monks are learning to practice meditation, they sit there and they focus on their breathing, and the senior monks walk around with a stick. And if they see someone not focusing their attention where it needs to be, they whack them with a stick. And the guy who made the documentary said, motorcycling is exactly like that. Because if you're riding a motorcycle and you are not focused on what you are doing at the time, that motorcycle is going to throw you down and hurt you. And he said that way that you don't have any external person with a stick beating you. It's just you and the motorcycle. So it's the lazy man's way to Zen. And I appreciate that focus on motorcycling can be absolutely life or death like firearms can. And so that ability to pay close attention to what you're doing while you're doing it and realize that the consequences are severe. I'm so thankful for years of motocross. And then I got into street biking in 1983. And I've now got probably about 200 to 300,000 miles on street bikes from riding around the US and a little bit in New Zealand as well.
And you're riding a BMW, right?
Yes, BMW Adventure right now. I bought that bike because when we moved out to our house, it had a half-mile driveway that was unpaved, and it was steep, bumpy, rutted dirt. And on my Honda Blackbird, which is a real nice street bike, it was not capable of doing that driveway easily. I always thought any bike can be ridden off-road. It's the rider, not the bike. But the geometry on that Blackhawk was not suitable. On the 1150 GS off-road, man, I can just throw that thing around like a 600-pound motocross bike. But we've got a paved driveway now, but I still take that thing and do some off-roading usually every few months. We've got some nice dirt roads around here.
Is that your daily driver? Like, do you bike every day, or do you just go on trips with it?
I used to ride a lot more than I do now. Now I try to at least get in a couple of good rides, every 2 or 3 weeks or so. I've got some good friends that I ride with, but it's especially with teaching now, I've got my pickup truck full of targets and ammo and clips and sticks and steel and stands and everything. And to do any of that with the bike would require a tremendous adjustment. So most of my travel now is with my Honda Ridgeline, and then the bike is more of hey, I'm going to take a day or two off and go putz around and put a few 100 miles on the bike.
Yeah. You ever ride to a class? Like ever, as a student or
Oh, I'm
a
glad you.
match or anything?
I've done a few of those actually. So when I took the advanced instructor class, it's at the location that Mead Hall Range is now, although it was not nearly as nice as it is now. The classroom was this little mobile home with, the interior floors were just, wavy and right. It was kind of scary going into that trailer for the classroom portion, but that's where I met my good friend Warren Wilson. He was out there checking. I always go early and check out the location, so on class morning I'm there in time. I come riding up on the motorcycle, and Warren's just coming out to his truck, and we introduced ourselves. And Warren mistakenly thought to himself, "Man, this guy rode his motorcycle to a class. He's really cool." And but anyway, so I've ridden to that one in Oklahoma from here, and then let's see earlier this year, I rode to Salt Lake City for a class with Citizens Defense Research. It was a 2-day ride here to Albuquerque, day one, and then Albuquerque to Salt Lake, day two, and then 2 days of class, 3 days of class. I can't remember now. I've slept since then. And then 2 days riding back and coming back. Boy, when I crossed the border into Texas up near San Angelo or something, it was 106 in the shade. And Oh man, that was a brutal ride. That was the only time I regretted riding the bike up there.
Oh, man. Folks, I want to give a very special thank you to Top Gun Shooting Range here in Memphis, Tennessee. This is where I teach personally. Folks, I do not shill for anybody. I promote the causes that I believe in. And I believe in Top Gun Memphis. Come by and see us.